means a lot to you. Do you think General Lee's failure openly to support Reconstruction was a failure of leadership? You changed your mind about General Lee. Why was that?
Many of you probably know this story. I grew up in Northern Virginia. My father was in the Army. My grandfather was in the Army, all my brothers. So military family. I grew up near Robert E. Lee's home. I went to Stonewall Jackson Elementary School. I went to Washington Lee High School. I then went to West Point following Robert E. Lee. And when I was a second lieutenant, my wife gave me this cheap $25 painting of General Lee in his Confederate uniform. And for 40 years, we kept it on the wall of every set of quarters we lived in, and I treasured it. One, because he reflected to me almost the perfect general. Brilliant on the battlefield, courageous, non-political, courteous, all those things. And that was the view I had of him, and I just sort of separated him and any political things. Then after Charlottesville, my wife, we've been married 42 years, and she came to me and she goes, "I think you need to get rid of the picture." And I said, "No, I'm not going to get rid of the picture. You gave it to me." She says, "No, that's not good enough." And I said, "Why? He's apolitical. He's not a political figure. He's a general." And she says, "Well, you may think that, and even he may think that. But people who come in our house won't know that. And they may think that you're trying to communicate support for something, white supremacy, which you don't believe in." So we discussed it / argued a month. Finally, on a Sunday morning, I went upstairs, took it off the wall, took it out to the trash behind our house, and threw it away. Then he went through this career where he performed brilliantly for 32 years, and then in the spring of 1861, he supports his state, Virginia. And I had sort of accepted that. And then he fought this lost cause against overwhelming odds and almost won but lost, and then quietly went into retirement. But when I really studied more of it, what I really learned and when I thought more about it, in the spring of 1861, he decided to go with his state. But he was a big boy. He wasn't a 19-year-old kid. He was a 56-year-old man. He made the decision to give his vote to his state. Says, whatever Virginia does, if you secede, I'll go with you. If you stay in the United States, I'll go with you. I'll stay there. So he gave his vote away. And he gave his vote away on the biggest issue of the 19th century in the United States. And when Virginia decided to secede, he went to Virginia and then eventually the Confederacy. He broke his oath, the same one I'd made on the plane at West Point, He tried to destroy the army and the nation that not only he'd been a part of, but also which his hero, George Washington, had done so much to found. And there's no getting around it. He did it for the maintenance of slavery. I don't think he was an evil guy. I still have a lot about Robert E. Lee that I admire, that I wish I was like. But I don't think he's a statue anymore. I don't think he's this iconic figure. I think he's a man. I think he's a human being. I think he's flawed. I think he's just like you, just like me. Made, at a critical moment of his life, made an incredibly bad decision and paid for it for the rest of his life. And I think that caused me to step back and think about leaders. If Robert E. Lee can be human and flawed, everybody can be.